Most people roll into the Seder and they know this part. So then what's the point? We have to delve deeper to understand what's really going on. Every moment has a theme and every nuance matters. And when you go through it, you come out a different person. So that's what we're going to explore together. The themes, the lessons, the reasons, the purpose. Because that's what this is really all about. Okay, now we're at the end of Maggid now. We're coming to the end. And right before we end, we get this famous line of Rav Gamliel. This is actually in the Mishnah as well. Rav Gamliel haya oimer kol shelo amar shlosha devarim ele b'Pesach lo yatsa yedecho vaso. Which is a scary line, by the way. Like, you have to say these three things, or you're not Yotze. What are they? Pesach, matzah, umara. Okay, just for the record, remember, you don't point at the Pesach. You look at the shank bone on the plate, and then you point to the matzah and the maror. So what does it mean? So let's talk about these three symbols, because these are critical symbols for Pesach, critical symbols for the Seder. So let's start with Pesach. And we begin. Pesach, why do we call it Pesach? Why do we eat it for? Because Shepasach HaKadosh Baruch Hu al batei avosenu b'Mitzrayim. The Jews were sitting in their homes. Everyone knows the famous story. It was Makas Bechoros. And the death was happening. And Hashem, so to speak, passed over the homes of the Jewish people. And because he passed over the homes, we call the holiday Pesach, and in English, Passover. Okay. Let me ask you a question. If you were on the committee to choose the name, I heard this originally, I think from David Foreman. If you were on the committee to choose the name of the holiday, okay? Imagine you're sitting on a committee, and you go, okay, well, what's the day about, right? Well, we were slaves for 210 years, and God came in, and remember, the plagues was to show the world that Hashem exists, and he took us out, and he set a nation, right? Name the holiday. What would you name it? Independence Day? National Day? Day of Mission? Day of Emunah? I don't know. What would you not name it? You probably would not take one of 10 plagues, take one aspect of 10 plagues, that's probably found in almost all the plagues, and then focus on one tiny little nakuda of the game. No? Like, when you win the Super Bowl, they give you a trophy for the Super Bowl. They don't give you a trophy because in the middle of the fourth quarter, you picked up a fumble. Great. Maybe that helped the Super Bowl win, but that's not the game. Hashem passed over the houses? Isn't that what he did for all the plagues? Didn't he pass over the house when the bears came to eat the Egyptian kids? For Choshech? For Dever? Like, he passed over the stable and our animals didn't die? So on the 10th plague, when he passed over, that becomes not only highlighted, but that's the whole holiday? It's one little nuance of the holiday. Let's pull back and understand what's really going on here. Remember, when Hashem turns to Moshe and Aaron, before the Jews leave Egypt, remember the story, okay? 210 years, Moshe shows up. 209 years, Moshe shows up. 9 plagues. Remember what we did earlier? If you look back at the Mako section, 333. Okay? Hashem's clear. The world gets it. Now Hashem calls Moshe and Aaron and gives them the following commandment. Go tell the Jewish people to take a lamb. That's the commandment. What? That's the commandment? This is the 9th plague. We're almost out. What Hashem should have said was, go tell the Jewish people to prepare to leave. Bake the bread. The whole we had no time to bake the bread thing could have been avoided. Hashem knew we were leaving. Get your clothes ready. Bring the animals with you. We're going to be going out, and as we leave this place, there'll be a barbecue grill the whole way. No, he doesn't do that. He says, go tell the people to get a lamb, keep it in the house for 4 days. Shecht it, put the blood on the doorpost, then slaughter it, roast it, and eat it. He's dictating the meal. Wait, we didn't even leave yet. The first Seder was in Egypt. Let's get out. And then we could do all this stuff. But why? So there's a concept in Yiddishkeit that's really important. called Isarusa de la Ela and Isarusa de la Tata. Here's how it works. Hashem is, so to speak, we spoke about this earlier in this series, but how Hashem is, so to speak, stuck, so to speak. And Harary Kaplan speaks about how he creates this world where he can't reveal himself too much, because then there'd be no choice. But he can't reveal himself not at all. So that's our job. How does Hashem navigate that? Well, what he does is he reveals himself enough until we know or should know that he's there. And then he hides. He hides because he wants us to earn it. Right? He holds the back of the bike just long enough until we get a little balance, then he pulls his hand off because he wants us to ride on our own. Hashem walked into Egypt and pulled 9 plagues, each with very specific precision. Refer back to Makos if you need to review. After 9 plagues, the Jews got it. There's a Hashem in this world. And then what he did, in his brilliance, he said, now I need you to go take the Seh. The Seh was the Egyptian god. They were Egyptian. They were there for 210 years. They were immersed in the culture. I need you to look at that culture. I need you to look at those gods. I need you to look at that way of life. I need you to take, can you imagine? Take their God, put it in the house for 4 days in these little Egyptian houses. Imagine if we grabbed a god today in America. Gods are like celebrities. Imagine if you grabbed a celebrity and kidnapped the person in your house for 4 days. You'd have a mob outside. Imagine taking a football player and putting him in your house. You'd have a mob. So they did. The sheep was a celebrity. Egyptians were like, what are you doing? I'm kidnapping you. What? You're taking it into your house? It's a god. My God said so. Your God said so. 4 days. God wasn't around for that. They didn't have lions walking you to the marketplace. It wasn't darkness. You didn't have locusts taking you there. There's the people on their own. Isarusa de la Ela, awakening from above, 9 plagues. Isarusa la Tata, now it's our turn, awakening from below. And for 4 days, the Jews kept the biggest risk of their lives in their house, and they had to hold on to their faith. And then the day came where they slaughtered it and put the blood on its lintel. There's no covert op. There was no nighttime activity. This was in front of everybody. You know what it's like to put on a yarmulke in front of everybody. You know what it's like to eat kosher when no one else is eating kosher. You know what it's like to be the only person not cursing, not acting that way, not doing that thing, leaving on Friday afternoon, leaving on September. You know what it's like to be the person? To stare at a culture and say, not me. And much, much, much more. And then they got into their homes. They didn't know if it was accepted. And then the plague began. And you can imagine the screams and the cries. Louder and louder and louder and louder. I'm sure they thought that they were getting it as well. Remember, 4/5 of the Jews didn't make it during Choshech. They probably thought this was the last one. They were getting hit this one. 80% of the Jews died in the previous plague. What do you think? They were any different than them? And I'm sure they thought this was over. And as the cries got louder and louder and louder and louder, all of a sudden they got softer and softer and softer and softer, and they realized that God himself came, looked into their home and said, these are mine. I choose them. We didn't become a nation when we walked out of Egypt. You think you leave one sand dune to the next sand dune and all of a sudden you're free? We became a nation when God looked at us in the face and said, I choose you. And you know why I choose you? Because you chose me. That's the moment we became a nation. When he passed over our homes, looked at it and said, I choose you. That night was a night in which we turned to Hashem and said, I choose you. I will slaughter the gods of this world to find you. And God says, you choose me, I choose you. That's called a relationship. Under a chuppah, you choose me, I choose you. That's what a relationship is. It's a dual choice. The Jews had 9 plagues. Isarus Ela, an awakening from above. You know why? Because God set them up to say, now that I awakened you from above, awaken yourself from below. Choose me. And when the Jews, and not all of them do it, 80% didn't do it. Shocker. We look around and we're so shocked that so many Jews leave. They've always left. They've always left. In Egypt, they left. It's hard. It's hard to choose Hashem in this world. It's super hard. But when the Jews did something super hard and they went out to the market and took a god, kept it in the house, and then shechted it and slaughtered it, they chose Hashem. And Hashem came on Makas Paros and said, I choose you back. That's called the dual choice is the moment of the engagement. That's when you decide to get married. Forget the parties. That's the moment. That happened on Pesach. That's why it's called Pesach. Because that's what it's really all about. It's really all about choosing. Being willing to sacrifice for Hashem. Choosing to be in a relationship with Hashem no matter what. And when we do that, Hashem goes, I've been waiting for you. First thing, at the table, Pesach. Make the choice. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us for this series. I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope that it enhances your Seder and brings you closer to Hashem. We have some cliff notes for you in case you want a Seder companion. You can download it. Check out the series and the downloadable stuff at pesach.us. pesach.us. And hope you have a great holiday, and may we see the full redemption soon.